Hey, Chapter 4, Lesson 3, and what we're taking a look at here is another name for the Second Industrial Revolution, and the name we want to take a look at for this is the Gilded Age. And we want to take a look at in this particular video all the different ideas and concepts that were floating around the Gilded Age, which is the same thing as the Second Industrial Revolution. It's 1870 to 1900, and it has the new inventions and the immigration and the skyscrapers and all those things we talked about. But the thing that we need to clarify, first and foremost, is this idea of something that's gilded, right? If something's gilded, it's beautiful and shiny, it's gold on the outside, but it's cheaper on the inside. It sparkles, but at the core, it's rotten. You know, maybe think of it like a table, right, with gold paint on the outside, but inside it's just wood. Or think about what we've talked about so far in chapters 3 and 4. A wealthy businessman like Pullman, who is super rich because he has a monopoly on the railroad sleeping cars. And then you have really all of that wealth built on the fact that he has taken advantage of his workers by cutting their wages and charging them a high rent. These are the kinds of things that make something or someone gilded. And this idea of being gilded is important because at the same time that we see the Second Industrial Revolution, the Gilded Age happening with people that are very, very rich and very, very, very poor, we see a new idea start to appear in America. It's called individualism. This is really, really, really important. And the idea is that no matter how poor you are, you can be the poorest of the poor. You can rise up in society and go as far as your talent and your commitment will take you. This is really important. We actually know it by another name now. We call it the American Dream. The trick about this, though, is that really, deep down, this doesn't really happen all that often, really, at all. The reason we believe it is because a guy named Horatio Alger wrote all these books during the Gilded Age, and he called them things like Strive to Succeed or Farm Boy to Senator or other books that had those same kinds of titles where you had this really, really poor person rising up and becoming really, really famous. And we think that that's possible nowadays. We talk about that. We call it our American dream. But it's really not an American dream because it doesn't happen that often. It really doesn't. What we see as a different point of view is not how poor you are that you can rise to the top, but rather that you're poor because you deserve to be poor. It's called social Darwinism. Now Charles Darwin is this guy that comes up with the theory of evolution and natural selection. And his quote that he says about this is pretty, it's worthwhile and worth understanding. It says, in the struggle for survival, the fittest, the smartest, the most talented, the most committed will win out at the expense of their rivals, the weak, the loser, because they succeed at adapting themselves the best to their environment, their surroundings. In other words, if you're smart enough, you'll make it. If you got good genes, you'll make it. Otherwise, you won't make it. Hey, Shy. Otherwise, you won't make it at all. And you deserve not to make it because you're not as fit as anyone else. Look, and this is laissez-faire capitalism, right? This is, you work hard and you make money, and if you don't work hard and you don't make money, well, then that's just the way it is. It's because you didn't deserve it, because you're not smart. And even the rich people themselves look to this idea and they say, you know what? We know that some people just simply aren't going to cut it. Some people just can't survive. They're just not fit. Maybe it's the fact that they're dumb and that's why they always end up in jail or the hospital, or they end up in court, or they need charity. You know, these ideas are things that like Andrew Carnegie and others look at and say, we have to come up and help these people who are just too dumb to help themselves. Let's call it the gospel of wealth. The gospel of wealth says that Americans, wealthy Americans, should use their money, their wealth, to help the poor, help themselves. That's key. That's important. This is for your essay question. Help the poor, help themselves. So we don't want to just give the poor person money. We want to build them a library so they can make themselves smarter and get a better job. We don't want to just give the poor money. We want to build a hospital so they can stay healthy. These are things that would make up the gospel of wealth. And there's another side to this equation too. I don't want you to think that everyone just says, you know what, social Darwinism, that's the way it is. You're just either born smart or you ain't. Or individualism, that you can just work hard and succeed, because we know that doesn't happen to everybody. When you take that into consideration, a lot of other people challenge social Darwinism and individualism. They say naturalism is the way. Look, sometimes you fail in life because of circumstances that are entirely outside of your control. Not evolution. Think about the hardworking farmer. Busts their chops. They work and work and work and work. They work so hard, but then a drought comes and kills everything. That's not their fault. It's not their fault at all. And there are writers like Stephen Crane and Jack London who say, you know what? Our books will show that the struggle of mankind in the environment, in the mean city or out in the wild, trying to survive. The bottom line here, no matter how you cut it, is that there's a huge number of impoverished people in America during the Gilded Age, and there's a very few rich people. Some help, some don't. So what we need to think about is, how can we get the rest of this population the assistance they need? One way is the social gospel movement. The social gospel movement, they use biblical teachings, Christian teachings, ideas like charity and justice to help people get what they need. Things like the Salvation Army, the people that ring the bells at Christmas out front of Walmart, that's the Salvation Army. The YWCA, those are places that come from the social gospel movement because they're trying to find ways to help people because they feel like it's the right thing to do. Another example of this might be something we call a settlement house. Remember, we talked about all those immigrants coming off the boat, and where would you go your first night here? A lot of the places they go are settlement houses. It's an offshoot of the social gospel movement, and what they do is they provide services like English classes or libraries, medical care, to immigrants that need help, that need to find a new beginning in America. And really, when you think about it, that idea of learning English, education, is really important to the immigrants, because without public education, without learning, you're not going to be able to work in a factory or anything else for that matter, right? You're just not going to be able to do it. So we see schools crop up to teach English and history and culture, and the idea is that we Americanize you. We make you acquire American traits and characteristics. And what we should point out that this is only for white immigrants. Asians, Africans, Latinos, they don't get those opportunities. Just the white immigrants get those opportunities. Really kind of when you step back and you look at this very, very rich and the very, very poor, and you look at all these ideas, a lot of artists at the time were looking at something called realism, trying to portray the world as it was. That's why people like Mark Twain write books like Huckleberry Finn, and it's why people, for the first time, have money to spend on entertainment, on leisure time. So they go to sport games, they go to places like baseball or basketball or tennis or football. They go to vaudeville, because it's kind of a crazy mixture of art and music and dance and magicians and comedy and animal acts. As a way to escape all of this, as a way to make themselves feel like they have a place in America. That's a good summary so far, and I think we can talk more about this when we get in class together.